Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Spyderco Caribbean, however you want to say it. That's what it is. But first off, in the name of full disclosure, this was sent to me directly from the Spyderco. As a review sample, as always, I told them I'd talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. Might be a gem, might be junk. They still sent it along, and so that's absolutely a beautiful thing. Next thing, size comparison. This is not a small knife at all. Here it is against the Spyderco Delica, the Ontario Rat number 1. I'm sorry, that's the Rat number 2. Here is the Ontario Rat number 1. And then here it is against another Spyderco knife. This is the Spyderco Spidey Chef. This is another Spyderco knife. Yeah, you freaking think. No, but it's another one in LC200N. That's the steel that this is in. That's the steel this is in. And so we'll be talking about this guy actually a fair amount during this review. And then finally, what the heck, the Spyderco Shaman is right here. S30V, very, very different knives, but nonetheless, there you go. Next thing, this is actually an interesting knife because this is the newest in their line of salt knives, meaning that these are super rust-proof knives. The first officially salty knife, by the way, to use LC200N, which is a brand new alloy that is designed, well, not brand new, it's been around for a while, but it's relatively new to the knife world, and it is designed to be, if not completely rust-proof, so rust-resistant that you're not going to care whether it's rust-proof or not. And so that's really great. The Spidey Chef and the Tusk had already been done in LC200N and the Native 5 in one weird side thing. But anyways, those were never certified, though, as fully salty. They still had things like, for instance, a steel detent ball in the original run of Spidey Chefs, although they swapped that to ceramic recently. And so, but this is the first of these salty knives that are really designed to be rust-proof that has come out in the LC200N, and that's a great thing. Then finally, a quick note, after you see this review, keep an eye on Pete over at Cedric Gear and Outdoors, because this is headed his way next, because this is absolutely a Pete kind of knife. So anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of the Spyderco Caribbean here. Okay, first off on the good side, you know what, ergonomically speaking, this is really good. As you might expect from Sal Glessa Designs, this is really just, it fits the hand beautifully. The height of the knife, the thumb ramp here, this just, it's great. And even in my relatively small hands, this works just beautifully. I am a big fan of the ergonomics of this knife. Next thing, this is made in the Spyderco Taichung, Taiwan factory, and that just generally means really, really, really good fit and finish. It's as good, if not slightly better than the Golden factory. They do great work there, and so that's absolutely wonderful. Next thing, this is a compression lock knife. That means it's using the Spyderco compression lock here, which is kind of like a flipped over liner lock, in that when you lock the knife, it pops out that way. You can unlock the knife just by pulling it that way, and you can lock and unlock the knife without the fingers ever being in the slicing path. It's nice, and it's something that's done well here. I like the compression lock a lot. I think it's one of the best locking mechanisms out there, and seeing it here, great, no problem there. Next thing, there are a couple of different blade shapes of this guy. You may have seen this looking different, be thinking, Nick, well, what are you smoking here? Well, nothing. Actually, what's going on here is this is the sheep's foot version. I like a Warncliffe blade. I really think a flat blade profile is great for a lot of the kinds of utility cutting I do on a regular basis. So I asked for this guy, but there's also one in more of a leaf-shaped blade that's maybe more akin to what you're seeing on the Shaman here. And that's kind of cool. And the fact is they also offer it in a serrated edge, as well as this plain edge here. So both of those things are great. But the blade on this guy is really, really good. I like this a lot. LC200N to start with is a great steel. It's rust resistant, absolutely 100%. But honestly, it's a really good all-around steel. I've used it a fair amount on the Spidey Chef here. This is a knife, by the way, that I bought, I sold, and then I rebought because it's just that damn good, and I was an idiot the first time I sold it. But anyways, the Spidey Chef showed me how good LC200N is, and it's done, again, really well here. It's got an absolutely great grind. It's very thin behind the edge, and it's just a really good all-around this sort of steel. It's a pleasure to shop, and I like LC200N just a lot, and seeing it here, great. And then, so there you go. Next thing, this is running on phosphor bronze washes, which is good. Phosphor bronze doesn't really corrode in the classical sense. I mean, it does, but it's not like going to fall apart kind of corrosion. I was a little afraid they were going to go Teflon on this guy, because most of the salt knives have been plastic handle and whatnot, but this is, it's nice to see that going on here. Next thing, this is well textured, absolutely 100%. You really get great grip on the side of this guy, and it prevents this from slipping out of your hand. This is a great knife in the Vaseline factory. although you're not going to have rust problems in the Vaseline factory because everything's coated in a thin sheen of oil, I imagine. Oh, Vaseline, more likely. But nonetheless, the texturing on this guy is really excellent, and you've got yourself a nice little blade guard in the front here, and you've got a guard in the back to stop it from coming out of your hand. This is as well as your thumb ramp here. Even in wet conditions, this is just not going anywhere. It's really well designed for that, and I appreciate that. Then finally, on the good side, the value on this guy is pretty great. It's $170, which is a fair amount of money, certainly, but it's a Tai-Chung-made knife, which means great fit and finish, great build quality. Compression lock in a great steel. LC200N is a great steel. I love it, freaking love it. And, you know, honestly, it's a huge step up from, like, the Pacific Salts that are absolutely cheaper, but this is just, like, miles beyond that. And so I think that this is actually a really solid price point. It's coming in the same vicinity as the Spyderco Shaman after the price bump. It's in the same I mean, I like this knife a lot, and so I don't think that price is any kind of a problem. And to me, that's what's good here, is that it's a very solid value. It's got great texturing. Phosphor bronze washes is great. The blade is just incredible. I love using this guy. It's got multiple blade shapes, which give people a lot of different options. It's got a compression lock, which is just a great lock mechanism overall. It's really well built, and the ergonomics on it are very, very nice. To me, what's great about this guy, though, is that it is salty. What I mean by that is that it has that rust-proofness to it. Spyderco has designed this knife from the ground up to be salt and rust resistant. I actually asked Sal Glesser, I shot him an email, said, you know, Sal, hey, what are the line is about this? Because, you know, I had trouble in my disassembly video. This idiot here thought they might have been titanium, because that would kind of make some sense. But the line is on this guy are LC200N as well, which means that there is just not anything on this knife that could really corrode. The pocket clip is titanium. They thought about that. The scale's a G10. The LC200N. This is just a knife that is designed from the ground up. The detent ball is ceramic. They are doing everything they can to make this knife completely, I won't say invulnerable, because, well, the sea can claim all given time, but very, 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 very resistant to things like water and salt and those kinds of ugly business. This puts rust resistance above all else, but the thing is, it's still offering great performance. This is still way better than, for instance, the H1 Salt series knives that I've had before on the channel. H1 is a steel that just doesn't impress me very much. It tends to deform very rapidly. It's great with a Spidey edge, with serrations, but LC200N is great, and the fact that we've now got a rust-proof knife that's got a great steel, oh yeah. And so I love that they make knives that are really designed for freaking pirates and whatnot, but they also make great knives that are designed for that situation. So that's, to me, what's great, is that purposefulness and the saltitude of the whole affair. On the bad side, the pocket clip is a little bit okay. You can see here that they do have this little black area here, which serves as a pad for the pocket clip to rest against. But the thing is, at least for me, A, there's a fair amount of spring to this clip, and B, the clip is actually not centered on the patch here. And so there is a little bit of friction pulling this in and out of my pocket, and you definitely feel this ridging as you're pocketing this guy. Not a big deal, but it's a deal. Next thing, this is a relatively heavy knife. It's not terrible, but it is heavy. It's got full steel liners, etc. Comes in at 4.21 ounces for 3.7 inches of blade. Not the end of any worlds, but it's a thing. One thing that is definitely a thing, yes, one thing that's a thing. Things are things, people. This is what you learn from my channel. But one thing that's a thing is that this is a big blade. This is a 3.7-inch blade. And that is a big freaking blade, 100%. And given that a lot of places in the world have 3.5-inch, well, mostly in the States if it's in inches, but have 3.5-inch lines, not a big fan of that. And it's also just a very large knife in general. It's pretty huge in the pocket. Once you have this guy closed, I mean, seriously, if we put this guy up against the Spyderco Delica, you can really get a sense of how much larger this knife is in the pocket. It's, you know, the pocket clip is canted well. It kind of stays out of the way. It's not pocket pecking. There's no real danger or anything with it. It's just big, absolutely 100%. And so carrying this guy versus carrying the Spidey Chef, which is, again, markedly smaller, this one just didn't win my love. But then again, I tend to like smaller knives, and I don't like things that are huge in the pocket, so that may be more personal than most. But to me, at least, that's what's bad here, is that this is a big knife, both in terms of blade length, in terms of weight, although it's not too bad. And it is really huge in the pocket, and the pocket clip is a little bit tricky given this texture and the fact that it's not quite centered on the landing pad there. On the ugly side, in terms of looks, I'm going to give this guy a B. because it looks kind of like a honeybee here. I'm just not in love with the hornet cheek here, right? I gotta be honest with you. I showed this to the wife, and she was just like, "Oh God, honey, that thing's oy oy oy." And the thing is, to an extent, I agree with her. I want my knife to look waspy. I'm gonna engrave a country club logo on it or something like that. I mean, so I wouldn't mind another color option here. I get that the yellow and the saltiness go together, but I'm a little salty about this color, so I hope that they offer me some other options in the future there. But that's not a huge deal, but I do personally find it kind of ugly. Final conclusions, though. This is a really nice, purpose-driven knife. It is absolutely the best rust-resistant folder out there, at least of the ones that I've handled. Everything else, by and large, that's really aimed to be completely rust-proof is going to be an H1 steel. It's going to be, which is, like I said, not a steel that impresses me so much. It's going to be like on Teflon, or it's just going to be, I don't know. And so or it's not completely designed to dodge the rust. It can be like this guy where it's very rust resistant, but you can still have some trouble, whereas this is just ground up rust proof. And so if you're salty and you need a folder, then you know what? This is the best choice out there, period. But the thing is, this is also a really excellent regular knife. This is a knife that's just great even out of the water. The compression lock is a great lock, 100%. LC200N, absolutely freaking wonderful all-around steel. I mean, it happens to be rust-resistant, but it's also great. The handle and the blade shape, I think, work very well for everyday life, particularly the sheepy kind of blade here. This is just great. The price, I think, is pretty reasonable for what you're getting, even with the saltitude here, and it is a well-designed folder. There is no part of this design where I'm just like, no, that was a stupid idea. Things I disagree with, but you know what? It's great. It's freaking well done. And so we have here something that I think is new to the knife world. We have something that is a knife that is just a true amphibian. It is designed to be rust-proof, completely seaworthy. This is a knife that you can hand to any aquatic jackass, and they will be very, very happy with it. But it's also great outside the water. This is a knife that I wouldn't hesitate to hand to somebody in the freaking Atacama Desert. Like, you know, okay, yeah, here's a great knife. And the fact that I can hand the same knife to a pirate and a freaking desert nomad is great. That doesn't come up very often for me, but if it ever does, oh man, I know what to bring in my trading caravan. God, I'm weird. Anyways, to me, so this is really nice. The fact that you've got a great rust-proof knife that's also a great knife, period. It is just spectacular. There's not a compromise here due to the rustlessness, I suppose. Rustless? Anyways, I digress. The only real complaint for me about this guy, honestly, and you guys see this coming a mile off, is just the size. This is big, it's wide, it's long, and honestly, it felt just like a little bit too much in my pocket. I like the knife a lot. In fact, I'd go so far as to say I love the knife. I'm really picking up what they're putting down here, aesthetics slightly aside, but it's just a little too big for me. It's a little too, mostly it's big in the pocket. Not like the blade's fine, but it's just, it's large. And so I love it, but it's not what I would buy for that. But that's very personal. I am hoping very much for like a mini Caribbean. I guess the Bering Sea is like 85% the size, so maybe the Bering Sea would be cool. Just saying there. But that said, that is personal. And if you like bigger knives, you're going to love this. And frankly, this is just a great choice of a knife. I can very easily state that if you need a knife for the water. If you live in the ocean, you live in a swamp, you live in a salt freaking lake, you are a swamp thing, then you know what? This is a solid freaking gem for you. Like I said, this is the best aquatically focused folder in production, just period, and it may well be the best aquatically focused folder ever made. I haven't handled them all, obviously, but it's really freaking good. And the thing is, though, for you landlubbers, this is probably going to be a gem, too. It's going to be a great piece. If you don't mind the look, you don't mind the size, I absolutely like this knife a lot. And so, no matter who you are, it may not be for you aesthetically, it may not be for you size-wise, but I think it's very likely that the Caribbean will pyrate very highly in your collection. Hope you're not too salty about that pun. Anyways, hope this has been interesting to you. Really well done. And I love that they're making weird things like this. And have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.